Hey, first and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakah, Kodash. Yahweh is who this world ignorantly calls God. Yahushai is who this world ignorantly calls Jesus. Ba'ashem means in the name, Rakah means spirit, and Kodash means holy. And that's all in the Paleo Hebrew. Also, we give double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. Today, I wanted to go back to the basics and go into how we are not supposed to celebrate our birthdays as Hebrew Israelites. Right? The Lord forbids that we celebrate our birthdays. Okay? Because this is what the heathen do. Right? When you go into the history of where celebrating birthdays goes back to, it goes ultimately back to worshiping your own self. Right? And I found this article here, this publication, and they did a great job. They did a fantastic job compiling evidence showing that you're not supposed to celebrate your birthday, right? Where it goes back to and how the ancient, right, or the original Christians, which are Israelites, right? Christian just means follower of the anointed, right? Which were Israelites, right? The original apostles, okay, they were not out here celebrating the birth of Yahushua, right? They knew it was forbidden. So, first, let's get a scripture. Let's get a couple scriptures. Let's get Jeremiah chapter 10 and verse 1. It says, Hear ye the word which Yahweh speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, Learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. And that's just straight to the point, right? Learn not the way of the heathen. Learn not the way of the other nations. Okay? Don't do what the Edomites do. Don't do what the Ishmaelites do, which the Ishmaelites are the so-called Arabs. We're not supposed to be living life according to their fashion. We're supposed to be living life according to what the Most High gave us, which are the law, statutes, and commandments. And nowhere in the law, statutes, and commandments does it say that you are supposed to have a giant celebration on your birthday and on other people's birthdays. Nowhere in the law does it say that. Right? It actually says contrary. Okay? It says to only worship the Most High. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. So, ultimately what is happening is that our people, right, through being in captivity, being under our enemies, we have adopted their ways. Right? When you go into, let me actually pull this in KJV. What's the website? Right? King James Bible Online. When you go into First Maccabees, the first chapter, it goes into the history of when the Israelites were under the Greek captivity. Okay? And pretty much what happened, right? When you go into the history, okay, let's start at verse 13. It says, Then certain of the people who were so forward herein, that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. Right, so this is going into history. Right, Israelites under the Greek captivity, they started rebelling against the Most High. Okay, and they learned the way of the heathen. They built exercise places. Right, the whole exercise things, the whole exercise tradition, lifestyle goes back to the Greeks. Right, where they actually used to work out naked. They became uncircumcised. Okay, they forgot the law. So ultimately, what happened back then, okay, has happened through all these captivities. Right, when we were under the Assyrians, we did the same thing the Assyrians did. Right, and here we're under the so-called Americans, which are still Edomites. Okay, and one thing they do is they celebrate Christmas, they celebrate Halloween and Easter and their birthdays. So, as it says in the scriptures, there is nothing new under the sun. So, going into the scriptures, let's get one more. This is 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 1. It says, This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of their own selves. Okay, that's exactly what celebrating your birthday is, being a lover of your own self, worshiping yourself. Okay, and a word that a lot of people use is called narcissism. Right? That's being a lover of your own self. That's wicked. It says covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof, from such turn away. Okay, and that's what we see nowadays. Right, the so-called modern-day Israelite, so-called Latino, Negro, Native American, is completely through. Right, are completely after the ways of Esau, Edom. Okay, and these paganistic ways. Right, completely lost in the sauce, and they think it's okay. Right, that's the worst part is they think it's okay. But let's get into this right here, and let's just start from the top. It says birthdays, pagan occult origins, the highest of all holy days, holidays in the Satanic Bible. It says there is an affinity of such commemoration among the wicked as recorded in the Satanic Bible, made by Anton Cezanne LaVey, Book of Lucifer, The Enlightenment, in 1969. It says regarding birthdays, this is what it says in the Satanic Bible. The highest of all holy days is the Satanic religion, is the day of one's own birthday. Right? So in the Satanic religion, these Satanists, their highest day is their own birthday. It says this is in direct contradiction to the holy of holy days of other religions, whereas deify a particular god who has been created in anthropomorphic form of their own image. Right? Because when you go into, let me read that again. This is in direct contradiction to the holy of holy days of other religions, which deify a particular god who has been created in the anthropomorphic form of their own image, therefore showing that the ego is not really buried. Right? Because these ancient or these other nations, what they do is that they create gods. Right? They create gods in their own image, and ultimately celebrating your birthday is the ultimate form of doing that. Right? But these Arabs, they'll have their god that looks just like them. Right? Buddha. Right? Who? When you look at a picture of Buddha, right? Buddha looks so-called Chinese, right? And that's the god of the so-called Chinese, if I remember correctly. Right now, if you search up, hey, what's the god of the so-called white man, the Edomites? JC, right? And they painted their gods to look like them, right? When in actuality, he looks dark-skinned, like a Negro, right? The Ishmaelites, they have a Muhammad, right? They have Muhammad, which this is not. I don't think they paint him Muhammad Islam picture. I don't think they make pictures of him, but he will look so-called Arabic. What else? Krishna, I think that's another god, is of the East Indians, if I remember correctly, right? And how do they paint her? The same type of way, Indian. So all these nations, they've always painted their gods to look like themselves, and it goes into worshiping your own self. But it says, the Satanist feels, why not really be honest? And if you are going to create a god in your own image, why not create that god as yourself? Every man is a god if he chooses to recognize himself as one. So the Satanist celebrates his own birthday as the most important holiday of the year. After all, aren't you happier about the fact that you were born than you are about the birth of someone you have never even met? Or for that matter, aside from religious holidays, why pay higher tribute to the birthday of a president or to a date in history than we do to the day where we were brought into this greatest of all worlds? Despite the fact that some of us may not have been wanted, or at least were not particularly planned, we're glad even if no one else is that we're here. You should give yourself a pat on the back, buy yourself whatever you want, treat yourself like the king or god that you are, and generally celebrate your birthday with as much pomp and ceremony as possible. Okay, and that's exactly what we see nowadays. Right, and the reason, one of the reasons being is because the Edomites are in power. Right, and when the scriptures, they talk about the Edomites, it says that Edom, right, the Edomites are the most proud people on the earth. Right, when you go into, I think it's Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 3, it says, and this is talking about Edom, right? The vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is set among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. Right? The Edomites are despised because of their wickedness. It says, the pride of thine heart hath deceived thee. Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Right? That's their mindset, is that they believe they are the shit, that they are the best of the best. Right? And ultimately it's their pride. Right? But that same pride has them deceived because they are nothing. Right? The Most High said that he hates them. Right? And that actually gives you context. They dwell in the clefts of the rock. Right? That's why they're called Caucasian, is because they came out of the Caucasus Mountains. Okay? That's where Caucasian goes back to. It says, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. Right? Exalting himself as the eagle, the pride, because the eagle is the highest flying bird in the sky. Right? So it has that pride about himself. Right? They're at the top. And it says, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, and that's going into these skyscrapers. Right? In this time, they're able to literally set their nest among the stars with these skyscrapers. It says the Lord is still going to bring thee down. Okay? Because at the end of the day, it says that these Edomites, all these heathens, are going to go down and the Israelites are going to gain power. So, hey, we're dealing with the most proud man on earth, and there's a reason why he celebrates his birthday and he pushes that ideology so hard. Okay, so let's keep on going. It says, it is interesting that birthdays are considered the most important holiday to these Satan worshippers. The founding of their church, called Walpurgis Nacht, and Halloween are the other ones of more importance to them. Of course, early Christians, which are Israelites, did not celebrate birthdays, nor did the early Jews, nor have real Christians ever celebrated Halloween. Right? Halloween is is another pagan day. It says the origin of Alexandria. When you go into this is actually credible, right? Origin of Alexandria, scholar and Christian theologian, says origin of Alexandria, also known as Origen Adamantius, was an early Christian scholar, ascetic, and theologian who was born and spent the first half of his career in Alexandria. Right now, if I remember Alexandria, Egypt, 185 to 254. Okay, so a little bit later after Yahushua was put to death. Right, he was put to death in 33. But it says, origin of Alexandria, writing over 2 centuries after the death of Yahushua, follows this same line when he recorded a diatribe against the memories of birthdays, indicating that at the time of his writing, a day to remember the birth of Yahushua was not part of the church calendar. In his homilies of Leviticus, speaking on the aspect of birth, Origen states, not one from all the saints is found to have celebrated a festive day or a great feast on the day of his birth. No one is found to have had joy on the day of the birth of his son or daughter. Only sinners rejoice over this kind of birthday. For indeed we find in the Old Testament Pharaoh, king of Egypt, celebrating the day of his birth with a festival, and in the New Testament Herod. However, both of them stained the festival of his birth by shedding human blood. But the saints not only do not celebrate a festival on their birthdays, but filled with the Holy Spirit, they curse that day, after the example of Job, Jeremiah, and David. Right? Because Job, they said, hey, cursed be the day that I was born. And Jeremiah said the same thing, and also David. Okay? And the point, summarizing, is none of the saints, which the saints are Israelites, celebrated, had a festive day or a great feast on the day of their birth. Only sinners did that, right? Who are primarily the sinners? You had the heathens, right? Those that are not Israelites, Edomites, Ishmaelites, and Israelites that were just completely after those gods, were lost in the sauce. But what he was talking about, right? Job and Jeremiah. This is Job chapter 3 and verse 1. It says, after this opened Job his mouth and cursed his day. And Job spoke and said, let the day perish wherein I was born, and the night in which it was said, there is a man-child conceived. Right? So, hey, Job said it himself. Right? Cursed be the day I was born. See Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 20 verse 14. Cursed be the day wherein I was born, and let not the day wherein my mother bare me be blessed. Right? Because that's ultimately worshiping your own self, and that's what the other nations do. Right? That's prohibited. So let's keep on reading. It says, and also key point, it says that Pharaoh, he did that. He celebrated his birthday. Right? And Pharaoh in the Old Testament, those are Hamites, right? Another nation, right? Heathens. Same thing with Herod. Herod was a Edomite, right? Let's search up Herod the Great. He was the one that was trying to find Yahushua and kill him as a little boy, and he authorized that all the little boys, I think it was Jerusalem or one of those cities, be put to death. Herod the Great is an Edomite because his father was Antipater the Idumean, right? And Idumean is the Greek way of saying Edom. Okay, Idumean. What is an Idumean? The Greek name for Edom. So if his father was an Edomite, that means that he is an Edomite, and that's why he was out here celebrating the day of his birth. So let's keep on reading. It says, what is the origin of birthday celebrations? Birthday celebrations are actually rooted in paganism. The Encyclopedia Americana 1991 edition states, the ancient world of Egypt, Greece, Rome, and Persia celebrated the birthdays of gods, kings, and nobles. Authors Rolfe and Adeline Linton reveal the underlying reason for this. In their book, The Lore of Birthdays, they write, Mesopotamia and Egypt, the cradles of civilization, were also the first lands in which men remembered and honored their birthdays. The keeping of birthday records was important in ancient times, principally because a birthday was essential for the casting of a horoscope. So there is a direct connection between the pagan practice of birthday celebrations and astrology, horoscopes, and fortune telling. Right, that's another thing. Right, goes back to astrology. Okay, which all that, I think it's I forgot if it was astrology or astrology. Let's see which one astrology is. Is that looking at the stars? Astronomy? Astronomy. Let's see. Astronomy. Astrology versus astronomy or numerology. Right, that's another way they use those birthdays is numerology nowadays. That's another big thing. Right, they'll see the day that you were born, and off that information, right, they use left-hand side numerology and can tell you pretty much what's gonna happen in your life. Right, the years you're gonna be successful, the type of personality you're gonna have, the years that are supposed to be bad, right, we're gonna have shitty things happen. Right, they can even tell you what type of people you're gonna be compatible with just off your birthday. Right, and all those things they have real there's real that actually works, right? But the Lord told us specifically we're not to be dabbling in that type of information, right? And ultimately, at the end of the day, none of that is going to save you, right? No astrology, numerology is going to save you from the nuclear missiles that are going to pour upon America. But most of the scripture, diviner, let's get that real quick. Which, right, Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 9, it says, when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. Right? So the Lord told us clearly, hey, wherever you go, don't do what they do. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord, and because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee. Okay, so we're not supposed to be doing these things, clearly. So, point proved. Let's go back. And I brought that out because that's an important part of the birthday is you can get all types of information. Horoscopes, astrology, blah, blah, blah. says, not surprisingly then, the ancient Jews did not celebrate birthdays, regarding them as pagan. Also, the World Book Encyclopedia, Volume 3, page 416 states, the early Christians did not celebrate his, Yahweh birth, because they considered the celebration of anyone's birthday to be a pagan custom. Okay, so if the early Israelites, Jews, weren't doing that, we're not supposed to be doing that today. It says, down to the 4th century, Christianity rejected the birthday celebration as a pagan custom. Okay, and if I remember correctly, the reason it changed is in the 4th century, Constantine. When did Constantine convert to Christianity? Right around that time, if I remember correctly, 312. Right, so the reason, where was I at? The reason, down to the 4th century, Christianity rejected the birthday celebration as a pagan custom. The reason it changed at the 4th century is because Constantine the Great came into that time frame, and he brought all types of pagan religions and pagan ideologies and mixed it with the Bible. Right? Let's actually search that up. Constantine brought paganism. Let me see. See if we can find something real quick going into this. There's too much reading. Brought paganism into Bible. Let's see this right here. This caught my attention. But when you go into it, this is what he did. I'm not going to be able to find it easily. I'd have to do more research, but getting back to the point, let's keep on going. It says, to satiate this point, notice also the record of the 1st century historian Josephus. Okay, the Jews in Hamashiach's day knew God's attitude toward birthday celebrations. And in his book, it says, nay, indeed, the law does not permit us to make festivals at the births of our children. Flavius Josephus against Ampion, Book 2, Section 26. And if I remember Josephus, he was an Israelite, if I remember correctly. Flavius Josephus, 37 AD. Yeah, if I remember correctly, he was an Israelite. Okay, and he pretty much wrote about what was happening in that time. Okay, these are real historical records. Right? If I search up what I just read, let's find it from a different source. Get that right there and put that on Google. Right here. Okay, the University of Chicago, another one. See what it says. Same thing we just read. Nay, indeed, the law does not permit us to make festivals at the births of our children, and thereby afford occasion of drinking to excess, but it ordains that the very beginning of our education should be immediately directed to sobriety. Right, so no, we're not supposed to be out here having festivals and pretty much becoming drunk on somebody's birthday. Right, birthday of our children, birthday of our own selves. That's not permitted. Okay, and these are the Israelites talking because they're talking about the law. So you can't get any more proof than this. Right, this is concrete evidence wrote in that time. It says it also commands us to bring those children up in learning and to exercise them in the laws and make them acquainted with the acts of their predecessors in order to their imitation of them, and that they might be nourished up in the laws from their infancy, and might neither transgress them nor have any pretense for their ignorance of them. Right, so we're supposed to raise up our children in the law, statutes, and commandments, right, because that's righteousness. And the key point is that it tells us that in the last days, the Israelites were going to wake up, and that we were going to return to the ways of our forefathers. Right, this is Baruch chapter 2, and I'll start at verse 28. It says, as thou spakest by thy servant Moses in the day when thou didst command him to write the law before the children of Israel, saying, if you would not hear my voice, surely this very great multitude shall be turned into a small number among the nations where I will scatter them. Right? This is talking about the curses. Okay, specifically Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64. It says, "For I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people. But in the land of their captivities, they shall remember themselves." And that's what's happening right now, the Great Awakening. Okay, because the Lord told us in Jeremiah chapter 17 and verse 4 that he was going to take away our heritage. Right? He was going to make us forget who we are and scatter us throughout all four corners of the earth to worship other gods. But at the last end, right at the end, in the land of our captivities, we are going to remember ourselves. And that's what's happening right now. Throughout the entire earth, you have people calling themselves Hebrew Israelites and calling upon the name of the Lord, Yahweh and Yahushai. It says, "And shall know that I am the Lord their God, for I'll give them in hearts and ears to hear, and they shall praise me in the land of their captivity, and think upon my name." And this is the point. "And return from their stiff neck and from their wicked deeds, for they shall remember the way of their fathers, which sinned before the Lord." And that's what's happening right now. Right? The way of our forefathers was following the commandments. And clearly, we have Josephus telling us that it was not permitted to celebrate your birthday. Okay, that's against the law. So we're supposed to be in that type of mindset. So let's keep on reading. It says, "History of celebration birthdays in the West. It is thought that the large-scale celebration of birthdays in Europe began with the cult of Mithras, which originated in Persia, but was spread by soldiers throughout the Roman Empire. Before this, such celebrations were not common, and hence practices from other contexts, such as Saturnalia, were adapted for birthdays, because many Roman soldiers took to Mithraism. It has a wide distribution of influence throughout the empire. Christmas is also relevant because December 25th was a day of celebration of the birth of the sun god Mithra. And that thing about December 25th, right? There's a lot of different, pretty much celebrations on that day. Because December 25th, when you go into it, is the winter solstice. Right? Winter solstice. Winter solstice is the 21st this year. Okay, but majority of the time it falls around that time period, 21, 22, 23, 24. Right? So these ancient pagans, these heathens, they knew that. Right? It was pretty much the longest night of the entire year is the winter solstice. Okay, so all these heathens, they all had their different types of so-called holidays on that day. But Christmas is pretty much the Edomites' way of celebrating the winter solstice. And they say it's the birth of Jesus Christ, which when you actually go into it, that's not true at all. Right? It's not true at all. He was born in the spring, right, which would be around April. Right? He was born a couple days after the Passover, I remember correctly. Right? If you search up when was, you gotta put Jesus. Let me actually see what it says if I put Yahushua. No, Yeshua. He was born in the spring. See what this says real quick. March 25th was considered to be the anniversary of creation itself. It was the first day of the year in the medieval Julian calendar, the nominal vernal equinox. It's crazy, this video is 1:44 in time. A few years later, Pope Julius I officially declared that the birth of Yahushua would be declared on the 25th of December. 9 months after the 25th of March is the 25th December. March 25th was also the day some early Christians thought the world had been made, and also the day that Yahushua died when he was an adult. Right, the Romans changed the date of Yahushua's birth I don't know. I don't know what this guy's going into. Let me see if I can find it easier. When was Jesus born in spring? And the reason you can actually track it is because of the Passover. Let's search it up. How many days after Passover? Uh, I'd have to go into it. Um, but regardless, I don't want to get too sidetracked. Let's just finish this video off. Stay on topic. Um, where was I at? Christmas is also relevant because December 25th was the day of celebration of the birthday of the sun god Mithra. Christmas in 354 AD, Bishop Librius of Rome ordered the people to celebrate on December 25th. He probably chose this date because the people of Rome already observed it as a feast of Saturn, celebrating the birthday of the sun. Right? The reason it's called Saturday today is because the worship of Saturn. Sunday, the day of the sun. Paganism. It says long ago, the average person never paid any attention whatsoever to the anniversary of their birth. The initial pattern that developed concerned the celebrating of the birthday or their deity once a year at the winter solstice. This is the origin of Christmas, since the winter solstice was considered the rebirth or birthday of the solar deity Natalius Sol Invictus, or the nativity of Sol the Unconquerable. This alone marks the behavior as originating from the rebellion against Yahuwah. Right? They're trying to say the name of the Lord, which is not Yahuwah or Yahweh or Yah, it's Yahweh. It says, who is the one and only Elohim of heaven and earth. Remember that Yahweh commanded that we learn not the ways of the heathen. Later began people to celebrate the annual birth of their king at the same time as their deity. Let me actually go skim through this because it's a lot. And I think the point has pretty much been established. Originally, even as more and more Gentiles began to profess Hamashiach, so much that they outnumbered those of Jewish heritage that did, the early Gentile leaders also did not endorse the celebration of birthdays. No early church writer endorsed the observance of birthdays by Christians, nor are they ever listed in the early observances of the Christian church. Therefore, the celebration of birthdays was not clearly not part of the faith which was once for all delivered to the saints. And it's the same things being repeated. So that's the point. Okay. I don't got any more scriptures left, and the point has been established. So the two really main things I wanted to go into was Josephus, Flavius Josephus, okay, a historian of that time, said that the Israelites, it was not permitted to celebrate your birthday. Second, Satanic Bible, it's a Satanist biggest day is celebrating their own birthday, goes back into worshiping your own self, and ultimately goes back to paganism, right? The Egyptians did it, the Edomites did it. There's nothing new under the sun. We are not supposed to be celebrating our birthdays. You're not supposed to be going to no birthday parties and getting lit. Okay, out here giving presidents and making a whole scene, right? You gotta use wisdom, right? And there's such a thing as being over righteous, right? Because if there's a birthday at your house and you want to go down, get some food, get some drink, that's cool, right? Go down, get some food, get something to drink, and just dip, right? Where you'd be going off is if you sit down there with everybody and start dancing and start getting drunk. Okay, that's where the problem is at. Okay, you just gotta pray over your food and you'll be chilling. So I'll leave it at that. Hopefully this is edifying. With that, and give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahushai, Ba'ashim, Rakak, and double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. Shalom, see you like Shalom.